Greetings, Coaching Club members. This is Ross Jeffries, your guru of getting some, and here's the place where you find real sense, real solutions, real answers, and real support for your complete satisfaction with the women you really desire. This is the instructional video module for March 2009, and it's about proper preparation for your sarge. This is a good one, so let's get to it. By the way, if you're watching this module somehow on YouTube or some other place, I don't know how you're seeing it. If you want to find out more about this fantastic coaching program, go to rjcoaching.com, rjcoaching.com. There's a special offer for you there. Check it out. Okay, let's get to the gold key rule here. The gold key rule is this, that the right state is everything. In the right state of mind, you can accomplish amazing things. The wrong state of mind, no matter what your skills might have been, you're in trouble. So let's get to what I mean by state. And by the way, for each of these things I'm about to list, I will do a separate slide. State is a combination of the following things. You could say that state is itself not a thing, but merely the interaction of these various elements. Number one, your physiology. Number two, your internal representations, the imagery you make in your mind, your self-talk, and also the sounds you make on the inside. Number three, your energy and vibe. And number four, your deeper level beliefs about possibility, capability, and really important, the meaning. This is crucial, the meaning that you assign to the task or the action you're about to take. Now we're going to get to each one of these, as I said, separately. Let's talk about physiology. For my purposes of this discussion, I don't mean your anatomy, knowing where the muscles are, where your tibia is, or your fibia, or your vas deferens, or any of that. Rather, I'm referring to breathing, the manner in which you breathe, where you're breathing from. Are you breathing high in the chest, or are you breathing deeply and diaphragmatically? Your posture, this is kind of old hat, but if you're slumped over, you tend to be in a kind of more tired, depressed state. So your posture. Your muscle tone. Are your muscles tightened or are they relaxed? One thing you should know, I just learned this, by the way, from my personal trainer, that boxers don't ever make a fist when their hands are in their gloves until the last minute. They only tighten their fist as the punch is about to land. They keep their muscles relaxed because they can be faster. And also when you tighten your muscles, you tend to tire. You relax, your energy flows better. The next element of physiology is movement. The way in which you move can strongly affect your physiology and the emotions that come with it. And finally, your level of fatigue and or rest. This is a big one. Internal representations. This has to do with what you're visualizing, and that means the content. Are you picturing yourself failing? Are you picturing yourself succeeding? That's the content of your visualization. But then there's how you visualize. There are many distinctions here. I won't get into the NLP distinctions about submodalities, whether it's a still or a still picture you see in your mind or a movie, whether it's bright or dim. I'm not going to get into that. But instead, the two big distinctions for our purposes are associated and dissociated. So let's talk about what I mean by those. Associated means that you don't see yourself in the image or in the movie, but you actually see what you would be seeing from out of your own eyes. Dissociated means you see yourself in the scene. Now I should step back and say that when you see something associated, almost always the feelings in your body are experienced much more strongly. And in fact, dissociation, being able to step outside of it and see yourself going through the experience, is one way in which people take the feelings out of a situation or a memory. And finally, there's the internal dialogue, the internal sounds, what you say to yourself, and also the sounds that generate and initiate trains of thought. What do I mean by this? Well, what's the sound you make when you're curious? Across almost all cultures, it's or oh. So if you just try it, if you think about some subject where you're kind of confused, and you put your hand here and go, or oh, that actually opens up the circuitry for curiosity. So the interesting thing is the sounds that you make to yourself, either totally in your head or outside with or just in your head, actually can open up the circuitry for entire trains of thought, entire flows of emotion. And people make their own sounds. For example, if you ask a woman, what was the first moment that you realized you really loved Bob? And she goes, that sound is opening up the circuitry for all her pleasant memories about Bob. So if you imitate the sound in her facial expression, guess what? you'll open up the circuitry. Now, you don't want to open up the circuitry for Bob, but you understand what I'm saying here. I think that makes sense. Let's talk about energy and vibe. Here's my definition of vibe or energy. This is my definition. Vibe or energy is the overall and immediate unspoken emotional atmosphere that you create with your presence, perceived largely on the unconscious level by the other person. So it's an overall, think of rather than a laser beam shooting into someone's heart or pussy, think in terms of rather a cloud of something that just surrounds both of you and causes an overall mood, an overall unconscious shift into a positive mood on the part of the other person. The distinction here is that vibe, generally speaking, is subjectively experienced by the other party or parties as an overall body sensation, a felt sensation throughout the body. Not necessarily intense, but an overall diffused sensation. Now, within that, there could be ripples of local intensity, depending on what kind of vibe it is. And this is a subject from a Magic Psychic Influence course to get in if you really want to get into this. And then there's the deeper held beliefs and the meaning that you attach to something. Now, this is really crucial. I want you guys to take on, I know people talk a lot about frames, and I teach about frames. So the most important thing to take on is a learning frame. There are certain meanings that you can attach to approaching women. One can be, I've got to get her to like me. I've got to make her accept me. I got to get this girl into bed. The problem with I gotta is it's coming from a lot of pressure and a lot of need. And then there's she better. She better is similar to I gotta, but she better is in a blame frame. You're really angry, and if she doesn't do it, you're going to punish her. Now, you don't laugh about this, because many guys, when they're having problems with women, fractionate themselves between desperation, I've gotta, or she better, which is anger. Desperation and anger are bad places to be when you want to enjoy other people and open them up to receiving you. Now, guys either fractionate back and forth between those two, or maybe even confusion. What do I do? So there's I've gotta, which is desperation, she better, which is anger. What do I do? Which I didn't even put down here. That's confusion. So desperation and anger and confusion, fractionating back and forth between those is negative fractionation. That's what you don't want to do. Then there's another one I put, I know she'll. That's confidence, like I know she'll. Now, the thing with that is if you haven't had a lot of experiences with stuff that works, you really can't hold that one. So the best meaning that you can attach to approaching women is, let's have some fun and see what happens. And I'm going to learn something. So if you're a beginner and not doing that well, the frame to take on is, let's see. Let's go let the world show me what I can really do. Let's go find out and have some fun. That's the only meaning that's useful to attach to using these tools with women. Now let's talk about why state matters. Why is this important? Well, first, learning and access to learning and skill is state dependent. I've seen, I think it was Kobe Bryant talking about a game recently where he scored 61 points, and he said, look, I was just in the zone. I just let go of everything and focused on what I was doing in the moment and didn't even talk to people before the game. I was in the zone. I knew I was going to score a lot of points and have one of the best games in my career. So learning and access to learning and skills is state dependent. Also, your state will determine what you can perceive and observe and the information you can gather. Is that important in dealing with women? You better goddamn well believe it, because you need to calibrate where she's at. And also, if you know how to pay attention, you can see when she's giving you fantastic verbal and energetic responses that you can utilize. Your state will massively affect how others receive you. Obviously, I just talked about your vibe. If you're in a vibe of desperation and anger and confusion, it's going to, unconsciously, you're going to surround people with that kind of atmosphere. They're going to want to run out of that atmosphere. Think of farting. Think of letting loose an elephant fart in an elevator. People want to get out of that cloud, okay? And finally, that's a good metaphor. I like that. And finally, your state will massively affect what you can do with the responses of others. So you not only have to be in the right state to see those responses, you have to be in the right state if you're going to be able to utilize those responses. By the way, this applies for any kind of persuasion that you're going to be doing. And when I teach my hypnotic speed persuasion and business influence business skills course, which I'm going to do, a live seminar, watch for it. I think that's what I'm going to be doing This is why I'm going to really emphasize state. So let's talk about some of my top tips and tools. Say that really fast. Top tips and tools for state design, rehearsal, and control. First thing I will tell you is that you need ideally to rehearse from a state of expanded possibility or altered state of consciousness. Now, I don't mean using drugs or any of that, but what you really want to do is sort of step to the side of your normal conscious state when you're doing the rehearsal. And that's because it enables you to get past your old conscious biases and your old attitudes to say, I can't do it, what if I fuck up? When you can get into the right kind of altered state, either by doing some ritual magic, which I won't get into, again, that's the magic psychic influence, or a very simple thing I'm going to show you in the following slides, then you put on the shelf all your old attitudes and you can begin to program in something new. Second point is you want to rehearse both associated, seeing what you would see through your own eyes, and dissociated. You want to do both. Third, this is crucial, rehearse out loud. If you're going to rehearse what you're going to be saying to a woman, or your tone of voice, or the speed at which you speak, it just makes sense to include your body in the actual movements of your mouth and do it out loud. You also want to include whatever body movements you're going to make. If you're rehearsing walking confidently, then you've got to do the movements. Now here's a great one that no one else will teach you, and I'm going to get into this in the next slide or two. Rehearse success from the other person's perspective. Rehearse your success from the other person's perspective. We're going to tackle each one of these in a separate slide. Rehearsing from a state of expanded possibility. Now, I want to emphasize something. You don't need a peak state. A lot of damage has been done by Tony Robbins' peak state shit. The problem with peak states is they take a lot of energy to get into and they burn a lot of energy. Do you really, really need to be in a peak state just to walk up and talk to a girl? I don't think so. This is the high energy. Now, if you want to be manic like Tony Robbins, go ahead. But it's not a good idea. You don't need a peak state. If you're an engineer, you know you want an optimum or just a nominal state. You only want that state which is maximally effective for what you're going to do. And after a while, you reach diminishing returns. So forget about a peak state. So what I'll show you is a very simple method. It's from Silva Mind Control. I give them full credit, but there are lots of different ways. Just get any book on self-hypnosis. But the idea that I like is to just take a few deep breaths. And close your eyes. And then my eyes are unclosed here because I want to talk to you. What I want you to do once you close your eyes is angle your eyes up about 45 degrees. So look upwards to your closed eyelids about 45 degrees. Now let me just show you if I can with my finger here. I think you can see my finger for sure. That's 90 degrees. That's about 45 degrees. So you don't want to put any eye strain on. And then with your eyes turned up 45 degrees, your eyelids closed, keep breathing deeply. You want to visualize 3, and then 3, and then 3. So you want to visualize the number 3, and then visualize the number 3 again, and visualize the number 3 again. And with each 3, say it to yourself, either in your mind or out loud. In fact, you know what? Forget about out loud. Just say it in your head. So 3, I'm saying it out loud so you get it, but 3, 3, 3, and then 2, 2, 2, and then 1, 1, 1. What I like to do, it's not necessary, but I like to put my thumb and forefinger together as I'm starting this because that becomes an anchor for me. See, I'm sort of going into it now. That's my trance anchor. Very important that you do this. And then you want to rehearse associated and dissociated. So what you want to do, first of all, is rehearse dissociated. You want to see what you would see if you were actually in the image. And then you want to rehearse associated. That means you rehearse what you would see through your own eyes. And finally, you want to rehearse your success from her perspective. Now, once you've done that, once you've done it in your mind, so you're going to do it once in your mind. Everything you want to do, you're going to just do it once in your mind, laying there or sitting in a comfortable chair. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get up out of your chair, open your eyes, and you're going to rehearse out loud and include all the movements. So don't just lay there. It's okay, the first time you go through your rehearsal, lay down, sit in a chair. That's what I want you to do. But once you've done that, open your eyes, get up, and do a run-through. Do a run-through where you do everything out loud. You include all the movements. Very important. And then I want you to go back to your chair, go back to your bed or your couch, wherever you were laying down. I want you to close your eyes again, and I want you to rehearse success, your success from her perspective. I'll say it again, rehearse your success from her perspective. So here's what you do. First of all, imagine the scene dissociated. So you'd see what you'd see yourself walking into the room or walking into the supermarket. And then I want you to, you'd see her and you'd see yourself. Then I want you to switch to being inside of her, so you're looking through her eyes. So now you're associating into her, and you're seeing you. And then I want you to imagine her saying to herself in her head, damn, he's cute. I gotta meet him. Or, damn, wow. Maybe even throwing a sound like, damn, whatever sound you think she'd make. Then I want you to feel a little bit of the excitement she'd feel inside herself as she first sees you. Then I want you to feel the feeling in her feet, what it would feel as she moves to take that first step towards you. And finally, I want you to switch back to seeing it all dissociated as she walks over to talk to you. Now, a couple of things here. First thing I think you ought to do is, you can if you want to, and you don't have to do this, but if you want to, you can continue with this. So you can, for example, step back into her and hear what she says and feel what she feels as you move in for that first kiss. You understand what I'm saying? So you can move this forward to a complete fuck close if you want to. I don't recommend it at first. Just get used to doing this. Now, a caution and a warning. Some of you are already in your head too much. You're going to use this rehearsal stuff just as another excuse not to get out there in the world. So make sure that the ratio of your rehearsal to your action is well balanced. For every 1 point of rehearsal, I want at least 5 points of action. Now, the final thing is I want you to rehearse a state recovery. In any circumstance, no matter how well you rehearse, there's going to be nights when you're just off your game. Your digestion is off, you didn't eat well, you didn't sleep right, and so, or something just happens. Like you're in the middle of a good sarge, some guy yells at you, I don't know, or she tests you and you lose your state. If you ever feel that your state has been lost, either you're suddenly getting fearful or you're getting too lustful, the way to recover is to ground through the feet. And what you do, and I've shown this before, is to simply do a slight bend in your knees, very slight, as you exhale. And then as you inhale, straighten up. And the whole time I want you to focus on the feeling of your feet in your shoes. It's a fantastic way to recover. Okay, I want your feedback on this. Was this useful? Should I do a follow-up webinar, a teleseminar on this topic? And please know something. I don't include tried advice like put on your favorite hat. Before you go out, make sure you play your favorite music. Make sure you dress well, look nice. Put on your favorite cologne. Those things are all true, but it's trite bullshit. That's not what you pay me for. Okay? I've really enjoyed this one. Please post your feedback in the members area. The Answers to Students modules are coming spaced out one a day over the next 4 or 5 days. Thanks, guys, and I really appreciate being part of my coaching program. Tell your friends about it, would ya? Thank you. Hey guys, it's RJ here with the Answers to Students module. This one I think has a lot of potential. We could do, I think, several weeks of webinars on this. A student member asked a question about building tension because he feels that he can get girls in that comfortable area, but he doesn't seem to be able to move them out of the comfortable area. There's many intricacies in this. We could turn this into a whole several weeks of webinars on this, and I think it also has applications for turning a friend into a lover. Remember, although what I'm going to be teaching you in this module won't lean on the language tools always apply. I particularly have been thinking about this module as a useful way to build sexual tension and such for women who have been friends for a while, and you don't want to suddenly turn on the full-bore language tools. So the language tools always apply. If you have an opportunity to slip in some stuff, by all means do so. Let me talk a little bit about comfort. I think sometimes we, recovering nice guys, those of us who are nice guys, those of us who have had boundary violations, emotional, physical, sexual, whatever, in our lives, I think we confuse our need for comfort with a woman's need for comfort. Oftentimes, if you really think about it, she's already sufficiently comfortable or just doesn't need a lot of comfort to accelerate to the sexual part of things. So it can be important to really tune in and pay attention when you're feeling those concerns about, is she comfortable enough? Really tune in for a minute, feel your feet on the ground, take a breath, breathe into your belly for a couple of breaths and think, wait a minute, is this her need or my need? And if it's my need, what the fuck? She's only a girl. So also remember this, for a lot of women, they may initially not be sure what they want from you, and that may feel a little uncomfortable for them. It doesn't mean they're rejecting you or that they don't want to proceed forward. It just means they're not sure. If you confuse their uncertainty with a feeling that they're fearful or that they're going to explode if you touch them, then you're confusing the signals. And a lot of women, if you push past a little bit of their discomfort, they will break into feeling comfortable again with you, oddly enough. And you can wind up opening up a lot of women who otherwise might shut down if you only made it about her being comfortable. Let me talk also about boundaries, invasions, and violations. I want you to think in terms of an intrusion, not a violation. I'm not talking about doing something that's a clear violation. You know, if you're on the subway or public transportation, you suddenly stick your hand down a woman's pants, that's a violation and a crime. I'm not talking about that. But you can slightly intrude. An intrusion is different than a violation. A violation is, let's say you're on the subway and you have to lean into someone because you're really crowded, okay? A violation would be as you're leaning into her, you reach around and you grab her crotch. An intrusion is as you're leaning into her, you don't tense your body. You relax your body against hers. Okay, now you're not pushing it. She's already squeezed up against you, but you're not tensing either. You're letting yourself enjoy the energy. That's an intrusion, but you're not doing anything different. You're no closer to her than you were when she was pushed against you. You're simply relaxing into it. So it's an intrusion, but it's not a violation. I think you understand. Finally, for boundaries with women, boundaries are fluid. Boundaries can pop in and out of existence like quantum foam. They're fluid and porous. They're not like walls. For those of us who put up our own walls, other people's boundaries can feel like walls, when in fact they may not be. So an intrusion, this is a loosely defined definition. It's my definition for a seduction idea. An intrusion is something that's simply a bit more intense or out of the ordinary from a mere friendly interaction. For example, you go to introduce yourself, and when you do, you hold her hand just a beat longer than is required, just to see how she responds. That's an intrusion. It's not an invasion. You're not holding her hand and looking at her pussy. You're not holding her hand and then moving her hand onto your cock. Okay? It's an intrusion. An intrusion is designed to test to see how she responds to the power that you're projecting and coming from when you do the intrusion. I'll say it again. An intrusion is designed to test her response to the power that you're coming from and that you're projecting when you do the intrusion. So here's some good ones. Number one, hold eye contact until it's a bit uncomfortable for her. This is especially good for a chick who's been your friend for a long time. Just look in her eyes when you're talking and then hold eye contact and let her be the first one to look away. Now, don't do this the whole time, but do, like, if you're having a conversation with 10 different, beats to it, every 10 beats, hold her eye, just see what happens. Let her be the first one to look away. If there's an awkward silence, let it sit there for a little bit. Don't fill in all the gaps. Don't fill in all the gaps. So let there be an awkward silence. And then point her attention outward, away from you. Look at that guy over there. So let there be an awkward silence. And then at the end of the awkward silence, go, look at that guy over there. Why do people go out dressed like that? I just don't get it. You understand? When you go to touch her, be a bit firm and commanding in your grip or your touch. So I was walking with someone the other day, and a car was coming. It really wasn't that close to her, but I grabbed her by the shoulder and with some force moved her out of the way. Not like hitting her, but like put some intention behind it. You know, ground into your feet and pull someone towards you. Show some commandingness in your touch. We could do a whole module. I need to get a live female model to show you this, which is something I think I'm going to do. From time to time, begin to speak in such a way that you begin to speak in time to the rhythm of breathing, just a little bit. Don't do it for too long, but just for a little bit, get a little quieter and say, there's something that I've kind of been meaning to tell you. And the thing is, I really like ducks. I've had this thing for ducks my whole life. I don't think I've ever shared it with you, but there's something about the way ducks are comfortable in the air and comfortable in water, and they could even go under the water. I just love ducks. You understand? Speak in time to the rhythm of her breathing about something that's nonsense. Don't even load seduction content. I'm not saying, as you're looking at me and you're paying attention, don't even do an induction like that, so you don't pace what's going on with her. Just say, I had something very strange I have to confess to you. And I'm really not sure that it's something you want to hear, but I really like ducks. There's just something about ducks, You understand? And then put your awareness into your feet. When you're looking at her or smiling at her, put your awareness into your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. There's something about the power and the groundedness of that. It sends a message. And next, test her physical boundaries. So instead of sitting across from her, sit side by side and lean your leg into hers. Lean your leg into hers, let it touch, and relax your leg against hers and see what happens. Lean your shoulder against hers, see what happens. Lean into her and relax your body. Relax your body once you leaned into her and allow yourself to feel some of the energy of feeling close to her. Allow some of that erotic energy to just flow through your body. Don't tense around it and be aware of it as you lean into her. If you're comfortable with a little bit of erotic energy, just a little bit, I'm not talking about your genitalia or pounding, but just a little wave of it running through your body as you lean into her, and then lean away, pull it away, and see if she leans back for more. I want you to sit side by side with her and play a game. This is a game I recently came up with called What's Their Line? The way it works is you go in a public place, somewhere where there's people, and you sit side by side and you say, this is such a fun game. Let's play What's Their Line? Here's how it works, Debbie. We pick someone out and we think, what is the chat-up line? What's the pickup line they'd use to meet someone who, well, you look at someone and you think, God damn. So, okay, over there. How about that person? And what you do is you whisper in her ear. You think, I think that person's line, you know what I think it is? If I told you, I think you have an amazing body, would you feel hot if I held it against you? Something like that. You can whisper suggestible things in her ear. Don't overdo it. So these are some ways, I think, real easy ways, without leaning heavy on language patterns. You can see that you could do this with just a bare minimum of language. And finally, one more thing is use some of the touches from my Irresistible Arousal DVD. You can get that on my website, seduction.com. And just get up when you go to the bathroom and do that touch from behind the neck and see how it does. And then the final thing I would say to build tension, you cut the time. You be the one to say, hey, this has been great, but I got to go. Whether that's on the phone or whether that's in person. And again, avoid text messaging. I don't like that stuff. There's some other things in the community that people suggest to build tension, like teasing her. I like being playful, but I wouldn't poke fun at people in the sense of trying to make them feel inadequate. That's the distinction. If you want to play with the person, that's fine. I don't believe in invalidating people. I think that's a pretty bad energy because you have to maintain it. If you invalidate people in the beginning, and that's part of the flavor of their attraction to you, then you're going to have to keep doing it. And it could also play into some very sick need to be invalidated. And it's better to get your rocks off by doing that. This has been a fun module. Let me know what you think. Hey, it's Ross Jeffries, and I'm here once again with another Answers to Students module for February 2009. This one's for Tom W. Now, Tom W. is really participating in this coaching program. He's there for the office hours. He calls in on the twice-a-month coaching calls. He submits his questions for these modules, and I really want to encourage you guys, take advantage of this program. It's here for you. Tom's question, fundamentally, if I can sum up this long post in question, is about, sarging women in front of other guys. He wants to know how to handle it. What happens if he gets interrupted by other guys? What happens if women interrupt him? And he really needs to handle the situation of being around other people when he's doing the sarging. So he's looking for answers to that. I want to talk about a basic principle here. Whenever someone asks me about a specific situation or problem or challenge, I try to bring it down to basics, to broaden it and look at some basic concepts. And this is the progress paradox. And I've said this before. This is one reason why having a good coach or a great coach or the best coach is really important. And it's this: when you begin to progress in an area of life that's really been challenging, very difficult, you're going to get more frustrated for a while. Now, the reason is very simple. The reason is you're going to be able to get into situations that before you couldn't even get anywhere close to. If you've never been able to walk before and suddenly you can get out of your wheelchair and walk, now you have to deal with keeping your balance, you have to deal with stubbing your toe, finding the right kind of shoes. So remember, sometimes when you're making progress, paradoxically, you may feel even more frustrated because you're finding yourself in situations, but you don't quite have all the skills yet to fully make those situations unfold in the way you want them to. I think that's what's going on with Tom, who's made some significant, even massive progress. One of my other rules in dealing with people's behavior is if you can't stop it, utilize it. Some people like to use the phrase, if you can't beat them, join them. I don't like the notion of beating people or joining them. But I do like the notion of saying if you can't stop it, utilize it. So first of all, is it really an interruption that you're getting, Tom? Well, maybe it's only an interruption if you don't know what to do with it. As I said over and over and over, I seldom take a woman's first response as written in stone. It's usually only a reflection of what she's thinking, feeling, or believing in that moment, or indeed a response to the context that you happen to be in. And it's almost always subject to change. Remember some of my other rules. Anything that people give me is just a toy for me to play with. Anything that people give me is just information that I can use. Anything that people give me is just energy that I can redirect. So is it really interruption, or is it unexpected participation? I'll say that again. Is it interruption, or is it unexpected participation? By unexpected, I mean it could be either because it's from people who you don't want to participate in anyway, you want them to shut up, or it's the kind of participation that at the moment you don't find useful. Does that make sense? So there's a couple things. First of all, I want to suggest that when you go into a social setting, you don't think in terms of sarging, unless you want to think in terms of sarging the room. What I mean by that is you want to make friends with everyone there. The first half hour to hour, you're not going to sarge any woman. You're going to spend that time being friendly and making friends with the room. And fundamentally, though, in these situations where it gets really aggressive, or it can appear to be aggressive, I leave it up to the woman. I've very rarely been in this circumstance, almost never. I can count it on one hand, if that. I'm talking 20 years of doing this. And I would leave it up to the woman. Just look at her and say something along these lines. You don't have to get it exact. You can say, but you obviously get to choose who you'd like to keep talking to. See the self point? I'll be over there if it's me. See the head nod? And just walk off. The other possibility is something like that. To say, you know what? Maybe he's the perfect guy for you. I think you two should talk, enjoy each other, and then walk away. Or you can add in this, you know, I think you two could be the perfect couple. I think you two should talk. It looks like you're perfect for each other. But I'll be over there if that's not the case. See what I mean? Throw in that little suggestion. The point I want to make here with women is if they're really enjoying what's going on, she's going to be the one to discourage interruptions. Whether that interruption comes from a competing guy or it comes from one of her girlfriends. I've seen this happen. They'll go, no, they'll try to pull her away from me, and she'll say, I'm fine. Like, go away. I'm really enjoying this guy. If you built sufficient interest and connection, and her investment in what's going on, she will discourage those interruptions, and you really won't have to worry. Some other options are just, when you see it happening, very gently take her by the arm and say, let's go where we can talk more quietly. Then walk away from the guys. Either walk into another part of that location or leave the location. If you walk away and take her to another part and she eagerly goes with you, it's very unlikely that they're going to follow you and interrupt you when you walk away from them, because then that makes them look like an incredible stalking a-hole. So utilize that. That's what I would say. But the real thing I want you to get Tom, is to look and see how you're making tremendous progress. Look at your progress. Give yourself credit for the fact that you're now finding yourself in situations that you couldn't even get to before. Hey, it's Ross Jeffries here with an Answers the Students video module for 6 Speed. I really don't know where you guys get these code names, but okay. And his question was about knowing when to make your move, when to kiss a girl. Actually, it's a pretty common question. So here you see how he's laid it out here. Basically, he said he was with a girl and he thought she was ready to be kissed, but he didn't do it, and now he can't get a hold of her. So he wants to know when's the sign that he should be going for it. So one of the things I want to say is, remember, in any challenging area of life, the assumptions you make, how you phrase your question, will contain some underlying ideas that may be restricting how you find the real answer. The whole idea of knowing when is she ready for me to kiss her assumes that seeing the readiness is more important than focusing on creating it. If your focus is on creating the readiness, that's the important thing. And also, another big mistake is to think of kissing as some isolated, separate action, that you're only going to do it as something that's discrete and cut off and a disconnect from everything else you've been doing. To me, I see kissing not as some separate, special thing that suddenly means you're on first base. I think that of kissing as a continuum. It's one of the things, one of the activities on a continuum of creating attraction and desire and arousal. So to set it apart so much in your thinking is itself, I think, an error. And again, looking for readiness is not nearly as important as being able to evoke the emotions and also then to suggest the kiss with your language, your vibe, the glances that you give her. So remember, it's very important, yes, to calibrate where she's at, but you're always responsible for taking the lead. Also get some perspective. Look, you're not thrusting your finger into her pants, at least not yet. You're not grabbing her tits or whipping your dick out. It's just a kiss. If you kiss her and she doesn't respond, it means nothing. It just means she didn't like the angle you came in at, or she's not ready at the moment, or she's doing what I would call qualifying resistance. She wants to see if you really mean it. So I would take the perspective that it's always on. And that if you can't tell if she's ready, you go for it anyway. You don't block your cock waiting for an engraved invitation from her. And here's something else that you may not have considered. A lot of women just don't even know if they're ready. Meaning, until you kiss them and they see how you go for it and how you kiss and how they feel when you're kissing them, they don't know if they're ready or not. This is just something that's true. All these reports you see in the community, how to know when she's ready to be kissed. Well, she may never be consciously ready. She may only get turned by a guy once she sees how well he kisses, or more accurately experience how he kisses. So that said, here are some signs to look for. Is she leaning into you? Is her body language such that if you're sitting side by side, which I believe you always should do, she's leaning into you, or somehow she keeps closing that distance? I was recently out with someone who had a boyfriend, but she, as a contrast to the first time she spent time with me, the second time we were at a sushi bar, I was hungry, sue me. She kept touching me. She was sitting by side. I counted the touches. Count the touches. Anything more than like 5 touches in a minute, then she's hot. You know, and if she's touching you at least once a minute, or she has her hands on you and hasn't taken them off. And if when you touch her, you feel heat coming from her, excitement coming from her, and she leans into the touch. And the most important one I want to talk about is the eye scan. Now, I don't know if this camera can pick it up, but basically the eye scan is when she looks in one of your eyes and then rapidly looks over to the other and to the other like this. And I don't know if you can see that on camera, but she's scanning with her eyes from one of your eyes to the next one, back and forth. Sometimes this also includes, when she does the eye scan, she'll look down at your lips, every other scan. Another big one, if she leans her head is at an angle, like she's leaning her head to make it easier for you to kiss her so you don't bump noses. And again, if her lips part just a little bit, but there's, it's hard to describe, it's like that little pouting little, just slightly suggestive parting of the lips. Bottom line, these are all good things to look for. Don't assume you have to see any of them. If you sense heat and comfort from her, go for it. And you know, being very sensitive to, excuse me a minute, I'm so sorry, being very sensitive to her readiness, that's good. That's what I call Southern gentleman game. With Southern gentleman game, you never ever want to do anything to potentially upset her and make her uncomfortable. That's a legitimate style, but I would challenge you to play hardball. And hardball is you go for it even if she's not absolutely ready, even if you're not absolutely certain she's comfortable. The idea being that the way in which you go for it will create the desire sufficient to overcome any discomfort. I want you to have that under your belt. So maybe like the next 10 times you're with a girl, play hardball just to make sure you've got the style down. Then if you don't like it, you can always drop it. Hey guys, it's Ross Jeffries. Welcome to the Answers to Students video module for Swoop. Actually, Swoop has asked quite a few good questions, so you may see more than one Answers to video modules for Swoop this month for June 2009. Let's get to this one. Swoop's question is a very simple one. He's talking about how does he transition a woman if he meets her in the street or in a shop? How does he transition her to a place where they can sit down and talk? And he also wants to know how soon he should do this. The first thing I would tell you, Swoop, and everyone else watching and listening to this, is you got to calibrate to the woman. You never know just exactly in advance, without calibration, how much a woman is ready for. I've had situations where women are ready to go home with me right then and there. The quickest I've ever actually seduced a woman was 20 minutes, total time. Of course, what happened was I met her when she was working handing out samples in a Ralph's, was it a Ralph's? Lucky's? I don't remember. Maybe I got, no. I don't remember what store it was, but she was handing out samples. I did some stuff with her, and she said, can you come get me after work? Now, that was 4 hours later, but effectively I only talked to her 20 minutes before I got her back to my place. So you have to calibrate. Look for the doggy dinner bowl. Does she lean forward into everything you say? I would see if you, generally speaking though, having said all that, see if you can move her to another venue within 20 minutes of talking. If the current venue isn't serving your seduction needs. So if it's too loud or too noisy, of course you want to move her quicker if you can. Otherwise, I would stay for a total of about 40 minutes to an hour. And changing venues anyway, whenever possible, is a good thing to do, as long as it serves the sarge. If you can take a woman from one place to another place to another place, it gives her the illusion that she spent more time with you. There's all sorts of different phrases you can use. I like to say, let's, why don't we? So the form of it is let's and why don't we? Why don't we go somewhere more quiet? Why don't we go get a bite to eat? Why don't we get out of here and go someplace else? Or let's go grab a bite. Let's go somewhere else. Let's get something to eat. Let's go take a walk where we can talk more quietly. So it takes the form of let's or why don't we? It's really quite that simple. But here's the gold key rule, Swoop. If she's really into the emotions, then she's really into you. And if she's really into you, the logistics are pretty easily handled. She'll find an excuse or a reason. She'll say, hey, can I go back to your condo and meet your cats that you were talking about a few minutes ago? She'll find reasons. She'll make up excuses to want to go back to your place or her place. So I want you to open to the possibility that your world includes meeting super hot women, naturally, easily, playfully sarging them, and going home with them right then and there for some really steaming sex, okay? I don't want you to get stuck in the mindset that says you've got to go step A, B, C, D, it's got to take place over an hour, or as one of my purported rivals purports to say, it takes 7 hours of comfort before a woman is willing to sleep with you. I think that's all nonsense. All right, let me have your feedback in the members area. Thanks. Guys, it's Ross Jeffries once again, and welcome to the Answers to Students video module for excuse me, Zizitana, June 2009. I should remind you that even though it's not here in the slide, this video is copyright 2009 Gita Services, Inc. and Ross Jeffries, all rights reserved worldwide. Let's get to it. His question is, as you can see, it's a long-worded question, but it comes down to this. He's got some hesitations about kissing girls. And also getting physical with girls when he's just meeting them, like on the street, and anything other than a bar situation. He feels comfortable touching women or kissing women at a bar, which is strange. So many guys don't, or if they're already on a date. But in a casual situation, he's afraid to put hands on a woman or any of that stuff. He also wants to know, what is the overall structure? Do you touch her? Where do you touch her before you go in for the kiss? So these are his questions. He's got some concerns that I think a lot of us have. So let's get to it. I don't have them, but maybe some of you do. So I'll say, first of all, my answer is that I give everyone when they have concerns or worries. Don't assume. Don't assume you know if a woman's ready or not. So many times guys block their cock because they assume she's not ready. A kiss is not that big a deal anyway. It's not like you're jamming your hand up her crotch or sticking your tongue down her throat. A kiss is just a kiss. It's a small thing. It's not a sexual assault. It's not a molest. It's simply a kiss. If she doesn't like it, she'll let you know. So don't freeze out yourself. Don't stop yourself. Don't do a self-freeze out. And I think your views of women really need to be challenged and stretched as far as what women want and what women are comfortable with. And they find they're far more comfortable with your I don't want to use the word aggression, with your being forward than with your being reticent, than with your being withholding. This story I've told over and over again. I'll tell it again. A student of ours many years ago said that he used some stuff on a woman at a church social, and they wound up going to the parking lot. She said, let's go out and talk by your car. And then she wound up saying, put me on the hood of the car and fuck me. He said, what? She said, I want you to fuck me. Put me on the hood of the car and fuck me. And he said, but the pastor's going to be coming out any minute. She said, I don't want to fuck the pastor. I want to fuck you. Put me on the hood of the car and fuck me. So now there's a case where the woman gave him a verbal command. She obviously gave him verbal consent. But my point being is she was ready when they were in the church and he was still doing this stuff. He didn't even see it. He didn't know. So women may be a lot more open to your sexual moves than you think they are. It's not about where you meet her. It's not about whether you're on a date. It's only about the emotions that you can get her to feel. Now, I should say, as far as where do you touch a girl, can you do some touches before you move in? Of course. I very often will touch a woman on the arms. If you see my Irresistible Arousal DVD, there's some spots in the back of the neck. One of my big tests is when I get up to go to the bathroom, I'll rub the back of her neck. And if she moans or does something like this or makes that kind of expression, I know I'm in. Here's what I want to tell you. Free your mind and her ass will follow. Free your mind and her ass will follow. Free your mind about the assumptions about how forward you can be. Free your mind of the assumptions about how comfortable she'll be with that forwardness. And you may just find that you don't have to beat around the bush in any situation. Maybe it's just in your mind that kissing a girl at a bar or on a date is more acceptable. I actually should give you a challenge. The challenge is from now on, you will not accept a phone number from a woman, nor give out your phone number to a woman, until such time as you have at least made out for 5 minutes with her. Take on that challenge and see how it changes your reality.
Hey guys, it's Ross Jeffries here. Who doesn't like to get more pussy? No matter where we are or how much we have, don't we always want more? I know I sure do. And with that lovely introduction, I want to take you to yet another fantastic instructional video module for June. I've been thinking a lot about closer language. I don't know, that's sort of an unfortunate term, opener language. The language that assists us in sealing the deal with women. One of the things that I often use is my touch. The way I touch a woman, getting her all hot and bothered. And understand, with some women, that's enough. Simply getting them hot and turned on, if they're in that place where they want to fuck and they've already thought about fucking you, it's often enough. But sometimes we need to add in our language. We need to assist women in coming to the right, in coming to the right conclusions and taking the right actions and being super turned on. One of the points I want to make before I get further into this module is just because we as guys associate being turned on with being ready to fuck. I mean, for us, if we're hot and turned on and we're next to a pretty girl and she's the one turning us on, it doesn't take a lot to get us to conclude time to fuck. With women, as I say, just because she's interested doesn't mean she's attracted. Just because she's attracted doesn't mean she's aroused. Just because she's aroused doesn't mean it's on right now. So, not wanting to leave anything to chance and wanting to bring our full skill set into the game, let's move forward with the kind of language I use personally to take the massage to something more. And by massage, I don't mean putting someone on a table per se. I mean just like rubbing on them, not with your dick, with your hands. Okay, so again, this module assumes you already know how to do erotic touch, and you know my favorite spot, which is rubbing the back of a girl's neck. If you don't know this, check out my Irresistible Arousal DVD. Okay? So my method is just to rub the back of her neck a bit. And what I'll do is, typically what I like to do is I like to sit on a chair, and I like to have her sit on the floor leaning her back against the chair. So I'm sitting above and behind her. And then I'll like rub her shoulders, and then I'll rub the back of her neck. And so as I'm rubbing the back of the neck, remember, in any kind of technique, what matters is your state and her responses and what you do with them. So after a little bit, I'll say, here, lean forward. And as she leans forward, I'll sit down on the floor against the chair and have her lean back into me. So now her body is leaning back against mine, touching mine, and I'm in turn sitting on the floor leaning back against the chair. This moves her closer to me and closer in for the kiss. And now that she's leaning back against me, we're ready to go. One more thing, and I should say this, something I always do in a sarge, almost always do, is to say from time to time, are you enjoying this? Does it feel good? I want her to verbally confirm, yes, this feels great. Even if I hear her moaning and groaning, I still want her to verbally ratify and affirm that, yes, it feels good. This makes the experience more real for her, and therefore something she's more likely to want to act on. And of course, since I'm doing productive work, Tazzleberry has arrived. You're going to see her tail in the shot sooner or later. Isn't that right, Taz? Cats. So here's closing variation number 1. I'm going to give it to you word for word, and then we'll go through it. It goes like this. I can't tell what you're experiencing. I can't tell what you're experiencing, but I can feel the energy moving through your body. Feel the touch of your skin against mine. I can hear the sounds you're making. And I'm wondering as you open your eyes, and then I turn her to face me, and I just lean in and kiss her. So let's take a little bit closer. Basically, this language is focusing her in further to her own experience by talking about what I feel and I hear. It's a way of giving the commands and suggestions to her. You understand? So when I say, I don't know what you're experiencing, but I can feel the energy moving through your body. I can even change the language a little bit. I can say, I can feel the energy moving through your body. Focus on how amazing those feelings feel. Feel the touch of my body against yours. And as I'm doing that, I realize, and then turn her face to you and kiss her. Now, it's important to get her to open her eyes. Usually when you turn someone's face to you, they're going to open their eyes and look. But on the odd possibility they don't, I just tell her, open your eyes. Remember again, your state and the degree of her response is very important. I've had some women moan so loudly and say, oh my God, that feels so good. I'll just simply pull their hair back and kiss them without any of the additional language. I've done that in public too. So with a really strong responder, super strong responder who's moaning and going, oh my God, this is so good, you don't need to do that. I do want their eyes open. Oftentimes if you move their face or pull their hair back, they're going to open their eyes. But I don't want their eyes closed because a closed eye kiss can be startling. Here's a second variation. It's very similar. I don't know about you, but when I feel the energy moving through you and the touch of your skin on mine, it reminds me how good it feels to share love and touch with someone who makes you feel totally cared for and desired. Then again, turn her face to you. If that doesn't automatically open her eyes, command her to open them. And again, what are we doing here? When we talk about feel the energy moving through you, that's command. The touch of your skin on mine, that's command. Reminds me how good it feels to share love and touch. Well, this is very vague suggestion, how good it feels to share love and touch. What does that mean? Share love and touch in what way? What do you mean by love? What kind of touch? Because it's vague, it'll send her into her mind to recall for herself how good it feels to share love and touch, whatever it means, with someone who makes you feel totally cared for and desired. There's the command. Feel totally cared for and desired. So this is leaning in a little bit more on the emotional components of it. It's saying not only do you feel really great and you're feeling these feelings, but it allows you to feel totally cared for and desired. And for many women, that's what they want. Then again, the same thing. Turn that face to you. So give this a shot, and then give me a shot and tell me how it worked for you.
Hey guys, it's Ross Jeffries, and we have yet another Answers to Students video module for May 2009. This is for Eric NYC. Eric has asked questions before, and he asks some really good ones. By the way, if you're watching this video somehow from something other than the coaching program, I encourage you to check it out, www.rjcoaching.com. Let's get to Eric's post in this question. Eric had some questions about what he calls last minutes before closing a deal, when she's giving resistance or having second thoughts. So fundamentally, he wants some techniques and some insights into dealing with what he's calling resistance. So let's see how I answer Eric's question. Here's a gold key rule. How you frame the question is the way in which you will see the answer. If you frame it as resistance and something that you have to overcome, then you're going to look for resistance, and you're going to look for ways through resistance or around it. So I think it might be more useful to, how can I structure the interaction from beginning till the close in such a way that you can't wait to ride my fuck beast. So rather than ask you about how can I avoid resistance, about how can I arrange things so she's eager to hop on my rod. Get it? I don't want you to ever think in terms of solving problems if you can avoid it. That's, the problem solution frame sometimes is necessary. Sometimes it works and it's required. And sometimes it's not the best way to address outcomes. So yeah, sometimes you have to say, here's the problem, what's the solution? Sometimes, though, the answer is to step outside the whole problem-solving frame and come at it a completely new direction. So let me give you another gold key rule. He who fractionates need not masturbate. Women need to be fractionated physically as well as psychologically. So that means a lot of start, stop, start, stop. Now this is not new, this is not unique to me. There are other people in the seduction community who give this advice, but I don't think they really understand how it works. And my lesson to you is that for women to reach the required level of stimulation where they want to fuck, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes they need a lot of stop-start. That's not always true. If you're in an airplane and there's some stranger and you start getting really attracted, they probably want to go in the bathroom and fuck then and there. But for the most part, I think generally speaking, women respond better if you fractionate. So you kiss a little bit, stop, you kiss a little bit, stop. I'm not even talking about taking things in sequences of steps, like kiss, touch your vagina, kiss. I used to think that way, but now I don't. Now I pretty much use a lot of kissing, to the point where they ask me, when am I going to feel you inside? Create urgency early on. So when you're doing your patterning, you want to talk about how sometimes you see an opportunity and you know you have to take this. Or it's like there's this new part you want to reach out and take inside tonight, a new direction. It's like you can look through a window of opportunity. So make sure you create some urgency early on. And gold key rule 4, kiss the hell out of her. I've gotten further from just focusing on and enjoying kissing without some further outcome in mind. Ironically, if you set aside the fuck outcome, and okay, now I'm going to go to second base, now third base, now I'm going to eat her pussy. I used to advise that. No. Kiss a girl for hours. In my experience, the way she kisses will tell you a lot about how she fucks. Is she a greedy fuck? Does she let her energy flow through her? Is she energetically blocked? I love kissing. If you kiss in the right way, the erotic energy of kissing can be just as satisfying, although not as intense, as fucking. Almost always I'll hear, when am I going to have you inside me? I've heard that. When am I going to have you inside me? I want you to fuck me now, get the condom. What else have I heard? Oh, do you want to see my pussy? Don't you want to see my pussy? Oh, I'm really hot in here. I think I'll take my pants off. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I heard that one very early in my career. These are the kind of things you hear. If you get rid of the fuck outcome and instead have the outcome like, okay, let's get some real erotic energy sizzling here. Understand and pace the real emotional need. So when she says this is moving too fast, I don't hear that much anymore. But if I did, I'd say something like, is it really about the velocity that our arms and legs are moving? Or is it about the desire to feel safe and realize this is the right thing to do? So here's the suggestion. Feel safe. Actually, feel safe is the command. Feel safe, and the suggestion, remember suggestions tell women how to interpret what sense to make out of the command. This is the right thing to do. Get it? Here's another example. This is moving too fast. I can't. Hey, I understand. I don't like to feel pressured either. Let's just back up and make sure we feel comfortable. Hey, I understand. I don't like to feel pressured either. Let's just back up and make sure we feel comfortable. Now, some people say, wait a minute, when you say, I don't like to feel pressured, aren't you telling her to feel pressured? No, it's not true. Commands have to be given with a command intent, and a command tonality. Otherwise, they're not commands, even though they may be structured and look like commands. You see how this works? Here's another tactic. Take on the objection, turn it around with a metaphor. Make a fake surrender, and then reclose. So take it on, turn it around, fake surrender, reclose. So if she says, I'm just not ready, it's too soon. You say, hey, I'm not sure I'm ready either. So you're agreeing with the objection. You say, here comes the metaphor. Sometimes getting with another person is like a thunderstorm. It comes so strong with a power of its own. We may try to slow it down or to run from it. Notice the head shake, that's not what we can do. We may try to slow it down or run from it, but it takes us over, leaves us soaking. Hear the metaphor there? Then the next step depends. If you're at her place, say, I'd better go. Walk towards the door. She's going to follow you. Turn around as you get to the door, take her in your arms and kiss her powerfully. And then take her by the hand and lead her to the bedroom. If you're in your place, you say, you know what, I'll take you home. If she drove there, you say, I'll walk you out. You get it? Same thing. Walk to the door, turn, kiss her powerfully, lead her by the hand to the bedroom. One caveat here. If you sense that she's got serious fear, if you really get that it's beyond just feeling momentarily rushed or momentarily pressured, that she's got serious abuse or intimacy issues, stop. Don't just stop there. Stop for good. You don't want to deal with this. One of my big breakthroughs in using my own material was when I realized what I wasn't going to do. Make a list of don'ts. I'm not going to fix broken people. I'm not going to try to break through walls. I'm not going to deal with stupid women. I'm not going to deal with people in chaos. I'm going to let it go. And then you want to look at what you do want to do. But I think you have to look at both. You also have to make a list of don'ts. Make a list of do's and where you want to aim at. But also you want to know, stop. I'm not going there. Don't waste your time. So if she shows real fear, real hesitation, deeply, maybe she's been abused. She could have an STD. Maybe she has herpes or something else that doesn't want to share with you the gift that keeps on giving. She could be involved with a very jealous boyfriend or husband who she doesn't want to cheat on. Think of O.J. Simpson, Ron Goldman, Nicole. If Nicole had said a real firm no to Ron Goldman and he had accepted it and gone away, he'd still be alive today. Corny fuchsia say, if you can't be grateful for what you've received, be grateful for what you've managed to avoid. A fucking men. So Eric, let me know how these answers work for you. Give me your feedback in the members area. Remember, one of the great benefits of being part of the coaching program is getting that feedback in the discussion areas. And Eric, you've been participating really well. You've been getting laid. You've been calling in on those twice a month coaching calls. So keep doing that.
Hello there, students. I'm excited to be bringing you this Answers the Students video module for Xavier M. This is about what to do when she shuts down. Actually, we're going to go through his request for help, and what you'll see, it's about what to do when you don't know how to properly keep the conversation going and you have unrealistic expectations as to how the woman should respond the next time you talk to her. I'm also excited to be telling you this is the first module I'm shooting from my new MacBook Pro. This is a faster machine than the last one I was using, so should result in noticeable better quality to the production value of these things, but we'll see how that works out. Here is his post. It actually took up several screenshots, so I'm just going to go through this very briefly. Again, I'm going to leave this on the screen for a while for you to read, and it's not my job as a teacher to read these things word for word. That would bore the hell out of me, as well probably bore you. Essentially what happened is he met a woman in a laundromat. He saw her reading a book, and he started a conversation on the topic of travel. And that seemed to get a good response. Then he leaped to the idea of what makes for her ideal man. And then, as you can see here, he says the conversation was really doing really well. He went into the laundry the following day and tried to start the same conversation, and she wasn't really open to it. So his questions are, his question is, as you see, what would you do if the conversation stops going somewhere? What do you say? Would you say, hey, this conversation is going nowhere? I don't recommend that. I feel you don't want to communicate. Definitely wrong thing to do. Or he's proposing maybe he should challenge her by saying, I thought you were someone who was open and friendly, but maybe I was wrong. So let's get to a few things. First of all, as I've said over and over again, in an area of life that's been challenging, it takes practice and it takes commitment to learn to recognize where you're doing things right. So first and foremost, I want to reemphasize, look for what you did right here. What you did right is you saw the girl and started a conversation, and the initial topic that you brought up was a great one, traveling and being on vacation. That's not a bad way to start a conversation and begin to energize the part of a woman's consciousness that thinks in more imaginative terms, that thinks in terms of escape and adventure. That's a pretty good place to start with a lot of women, not with all women. So to look at this a little bit more closely, the format you used was asking a question. You didn't play a game or a quiz, you didn't tell a joke or a story, you didn't offer a traditional memorized pattern like Discovery Channel or Blowjob. You used the format of asking a question, and the topic was travel and being on vacation. So I like that. I like the format, which is a question, and the topic, escape, travel, being on vacation. Remember now, responses need to be developed. Just because she had a good response initially, you can't expect that response is just going to stay there. The responses, emotional responses from a woman are like soap bubbles. They appear momentarily, but they can pop for any reason. So it's great that she had the response, but rather than moving on to the next topic, if you're seeing that she's responding well, and let's go through what that could mean. She could show you a good verbal response. She could start talking and reveal what I call personal trance words. Let's give an example. So you ask, so if you could go on vacation somewhere, where would you love to go? And she starts talking about, well, I like to go to the mountains of Sicily. I don't even know if Sicily has mountains, by the way. And you would say, well, what was your favorite part of that? And she says, well, the energy I experienced of surrendering to the outdoors in a way where I felt a rush. You would know that she's leaning on the words energy and surrender and rush. So you would want to repeat those words back. You would say, yes, I also love the rush that you feel when you surrender to this energy that you see in front of you now. You would incorporate it back. So the kinds of responses you may get are, you may hear personal trance words. You may see she gives you nonverbal things like, Sicily. So this, is a signal she gives herself to open up all those responses further in her mind. So responses need to be noticed and they need to be developed. You need to feed them back, anchor them, ask more questions. Really, what's your favorite part of that? So it seems to me that noticing the kinds of responses that you get and knowing how to develop them would be very useful for you, instead of switching topics right away. So it seems to me you did a topic switch. You jumped to a theme of the ideal man, which, first of all, shut down developing any further all those great responses she was giving you about vacation. I would have continued to develop those rather than jumping immediately to another theme, which has, by the way, no connection whatsoever to what you were talking about before. Now, sometimes using a non sequitur, jumping from one theme to another that has no logical connection, can be useful, but in this case it's not. Remember, it's about the responses you get and not the conversation. If the responses are, now that's this kind of subtle point. You said, how do you keep the conversation going? That assumes that you have to jump to another topic. To me, it's about keeping the responses going. If she's giving you great responses based on that first question, then develop those. That becomes the conversation. The conversation becomes how you develop the responses she gave you from that first question, that first theme. That's the conversation. But if this happens, there's several different methods you can use. If the conversation does seem to be petering out, you can change the topic or the theme. So you can go from vacation to connections. You can change the format. So rather than asking questions, you can switch to a game. You can say, hey, there's this really cool game I saw at a party called the Twin Brothers. Let's play. You can change the vibe. You can become more playful or more commanding. You could reveal something about yourself, so offer a more vulnerable vibe. You could show more understanding of her world, so you can change the vibe. By the way, you can change all of these simultaneously. It's not one or the other. You can change the direction of attention, meaning rather than the attention being you and her, you can look outward at something that's going on out in the environment around you. And finally, you can change posture. You can stand up instead of sitting down, or you can change location. You can move to another place in the room or move to another location entirely, leave that area. So I hope these are useful for you. I'd really like to see your feedback on the forum. I really want to encourage you students to please give me your feedback. It really encourages me as a teacher. I can produce better stuff for you. Everyone is happy.
Hey guys, it's RJ with an Answers to Students video module for AIMS, December 09. I hope you'll forgive me for being a couple of days late with this. We got extremely busy with end of the year stuff. But here we go. He asked a question about sarging when he's under time constraints. It's actually a very interesting situation. We often find ourselves in these situations where we met a girl, she seems pretty intriguing, pretty interesting, but obviously she's in a hurry. And we're in a hurry. This happened to me just the other day when I met a girl in a gas station, and she was obviously about to take off. And so let's get to this. This is his post. I don't want to read it word for word, but fundamentally he's saying sometimes he finds himself in a situation where he really doesn't have a lot of time to talk. You're on a busy subway. She's going one way. You're going the other way. And so his real question is, well, do I have any advice on how to build up that connection? What to do after he's introduced himself to a girl, and then obviously there's not much more time to talk. How do you get contact information, etc., etc.? A big rule of seduction, it's something that we say in marketing. If you can't fix it, feature it. The thing to do is, if you see this kind of thing happening, you need to demonstrate your understanding of the situation. Don't just try to push through or push for something where you observe there's not a lot of readiness. With any kind of persuasion, if there's a challenge, you want to be the one to bring it up first. Same thing when it comes to lawsuits or criminal prosecutions. If there's some kind of evidence that's going to be introduced that makes your side look bad, you introduce it first. You bring it up first so you can set the frame around what it all means. So if you perceive you've only got a little time, I want you to make it a couple things you can do. First of all, make an impact by displaying as many vibes as you can with your introduction. This is why I like a kind of funny introduction, because from being funny, you can then turn to being sincere and stating your intent. After they laugh, you can say, well, I'm glad you laughed because I noticed you here. And I wanted to see if there was a sense of humor wrapped up in all the pretty. My name is... Boom. You see? So you're going from being funny to clearly stating your intent to implying a compliment, demonstrating a lot right as you come in, using your strength and your ability to be in command of different vibes. If you can, always invite her to sit down right then and there. Don't assume she's too busy. She may not be. So just because she looks in a hurry, don't assume so. Always invite them to sit down for a minute. I'll say, look, I only have a minute. I've got to get going, but why don't we sit just for a minute and talk? Always at least try that. I would pace the reality that you're both busy. I'd say, you know, I have to get going in a minute, and it looks like you're in a hurry too. But why don't we see if we can exchange information and see how much we can enjoy keep talking. Now, that's kind of a ill-formed sentence. We can enjoy keep talking. It doesn't really make a lot of well-formed sense, and that's actually one way to slide the suggestion in, which is we keep talking. Another option, I've said this, I'll say, look, I've got to get going, and I can see you're about to leave too. You know, I don't know you very well, and you don't yet know the person I am, but if you're not with someone who's with you in the way you truly want them to be, maybe we owe it to ourselves to talk. Now, this is really, really good, this whole thing, if you're not with someone who's with you in the way you truly want them to be. I think it covers a lot more ground than saying, are you single? Because this allows for the fact that, hey, maybe she is seeing someone, but they're not really meeting her needs, which is almost always the case. And it takes advantage of the fact that women are constantly comparing their current relationship with their ideal of where they want to be. Very few women can sit with it and be fully satisfied with it.
So go ahead and give that a quick try. Tell me how that works out for you. Okay guys, this is going to be a somewhat controversial instructional video module for November 2009. By the way, you may notice these modules are not numbered properly. I just have been very creative and have not been keeping track of the proper number, but someone wanted to know how to seduce religious women. From time to time we get these questions over my years of doing this, and Tazzleberry the cat is going to bother me for a moment. Thank you, Tazzleberry, for showing yourself. Now you need to piss off and not bother Dad when he's working. So let's go and see what I have to say on this topic. One of the rules of persuasion that I learned a long time ago and that I've been teaching for years, and we can view seduction as merely a subset of the overall subject of influence and persuasion, personal persuasiveness. And the big rule is utilize what's there. Anything people offer you, any rigid kind of structure or rigid set of responses or beliefs are actually worthwhile. They're actually useful if you know how to utilize them. So when you encounter resistance, what you're actually encountering are a set, Tazzleberry, I'm sorry guys, are a set of resources. You're encountering a very rich and tightly bound set of beliefs and energies and responses that can be used. Let me just interject something here that I didn't do a slide about, which is the moral question, the ethical question. You may want to really stop and think, is it worth potentially violating someone's beliefs in a way that may make them regret it later, just so you can get your jollies, get your rocks off? I think there's plenty of quality punani out there where you really don't need to push down too hard on people's religious buttons. Also realize that the religious objection sometimes is just bullshit, that the woman doesn't even really honor the religious objection, and be careful to realize if it even really is an objection. How do you know she's objecting? Did she say, I can't sleep with you because I believe in Jesus? Or did she just happen to bring up that she's a Christian and you assumed that she wouldn't sleep with you? I think 50% of these religious ideas are only honored in the breaking of them. So I don't think people take them seriously. I've slept with all sorts of religious girls who still fuck like crazy because God wants them to love people and God forgives them. My nephew had an affair with a very religious Orthodox Jewish girl who covered her head, but he was fucking her like crazy. So there you go. That said, religion is important not because it's true. Or rather, religion is not important because it's true. Religious beliefs are just a subset of what I think of as personal metaphors. Metaphors are those overall large ideas, large concepts that tend to structure all of the rest of our thinking on that subject down on progressively more narrow logical levels. So here's an example. For me, the metaphors that tend to have a lot of emotional charge for me, that tend to direct and color a lot of my thinking, are cats, aviation, and comic book superheroes. If you were to join me here in my home in Marina del Rey, you would see, first of all, I have two living examples of fantastic feline artwork. Those are my cats, Tazzleberry and Tabitha. Tazzleberry, as you see, walked by the screen. So cats and everything associated with cats have a lot of emotional charge, a lot of meaning for me. All the symbology that has to do with cats. So if you could incorporate that in your messages or your marketing to me or your personal communication, that would have a lot of power. Second, you'll see that aviation is a big deal for me. I have model airplanes and books on aviation and aviation design all over my home. So again, if you could say, Ross, I want to fly an idea by you, and I'm not sure how well it'll take off or how smooth it'll climb, but let's check it out, would you? So climb in the cockpit with me for a minute and take hold of these controls. I go, sure. Comic book superheroes, you know, I wear the Green Lantern ring. It has symbolic meaning to me. So symbolism, whether it has any connection with reality, whatever that means, really doesn't matter. What matters is symbolism, whether it's our own unique, quirky symbolism, stuff we've adopted, stuff that our culture, particularly our religious heritage, has put into us, has a lot of power to organize our thinking. So I want you to think of religious thinking as simply a smaller subset of the larger area of life called metaphor. And again, much of my thinking is colored by these topics. I do think of myself as a hero to my students. I use a lot of aviation metaphors personally when I think to myself about developing speed seduction, you know, flying on the cutting edge, pushing the envelope. And, you know, with regard to cats, Sarge the cat is the mascot for speed seduction and the entire seduction community. So religion gives us metaphors like sin. Is there really such a thing as sin? No, probably not. Atonement, a personal relationship with Jesus. What are some of the other phrases? So I would encourage you, based on the religion of the woman you want to influence, what are some of the phrases that are common to that? Well, I know with Christianity, particularly evangelical Christianity, you want a personal relationship with Jesus. Let the Lord come inside your life. He loves you from the foundation of time. Let the Lord come inside you. So what I would do is I would start by asking a question. I'd say, tell me something. I'm not interested in why you believe as much as I am how you came to believe. What was the moment where you realized, wow, this is really true? And then let her give you her description. And require her through the questions you follow up with to narrow down even more on what it felt like. So, like when you had this moment, what did it feel like to you? And I would repeat back, if you don't, hear anything from her that's useful, or if you do, I would include some things about when you first met the Lord and you really felt his power come inside you. What was that like to know that God loves you from the foundation of time? Before the universe was created, this love was there. You understand? Utilize that, and from there, see how it goes. But again, I would also urge you to rethink this, to see if it's really worthwhile to violate someone's religious beliefs. You're utilizing them, but you also may be violating some boundaries. Is it worth it really to get your rocks off? Do we really want to go through life putting our pleasure at the cost of someone else's pain or confusion? And I don't want to play that way. If you know how to meet women, you shouldn't have to rely on that, but give it a shot.
Hey guys, it's RJ here with an Answers to Students module for Ace of Cups. This is an ongoing topic, a topic of ongoing interest, obviously, seducing younger women. And some of the elements that I'm going to introduce in this module could actually make a 6 months course. So remember, for the sake of this discussion, I'm abbreviating massively. There's a lot to be discussed in all of these points. So basically, what Ace wants to know is, how to seduce younger women. This is an ongoing discussion that we've been having. So let me give you some of my newer thoughts about the matter and review some of the older ones and give you some distinctions on the older ones. First of all, let's remember the don'ts. Let's define what we mean by younger woman. I'm 51. So actually, to me, anyone who's under 30, I will treat as a younger woman. I don't treat the ones who are 30 and up as younger because they've been around, and I can be more direct in terms of how I tell them how attractive I find them. That's okay. But under 30, generally speaking, if there's more than a 10-year to 15-year age difference, you got to be really careful about offering direct compliments. Oh, I saw you here and noticed your energy. Any kind of direct approach at all that involves a compliment is usually something I'm going to avoid with a younger woman. With a younger woman, I'm almost always going to go in with an observation. It's just an observation. And the observation often is sometimes very vague, like, are you aware that your paraspinals are laterally asymmetrical? And I'm going to be funny, but I'm very rarely going to say, hey, I just noticed you here and really wanted to meet you. I'll just start a conversation. You're not going to ask her out on a date. You're not going to compliment her on her looks. And you want to do your best to meet her outside of a social context to avoid the kind of judgments that might take place when her friends are surrounding her. So I'm not going to attempt to meet a woman in her 20s, probably not, although I've done it before, at a party or, some kind of social situation where her peer group, her clique is there. Just, you're blocking your own cock when you do that. A big piece of this also is the proper selection of subject. Now, this takes time and experience to see, but I'm looking for a young woman who's physically fit, who's very suggestible. And again, you begin to see this over time as you talk to them. You begin to see how much do they direct their focus inward at you. You can tell when someone's really beginning to pay attention in a special way, where they just give all their attention. One way I can tell someone's a good subject is if they volunteer that they love to read and they can actually put themselves into the novel and feel whatever the characters are feeling. That's a sign you've got a good subject. Adventurous, and of course she's got to be sexual. I'm not interested in fucking young women who are virgins or who have not had some pretty good sexual experience, because I don't want to be their teacher in that sense.
The top vibes are commanding and being an authority in her world. So being commanding and dominant, and also demonstrating that you understand her world and also understand her world as she would like it to be. That's very powerful. And see, it's okay to start out funny. I picked up young women. I remember I picked up this, she was like 20-year-old college athlete. She played softball for Loyola Marymount. The way I picked her up is we were in a yogurt place. This is like the year 2001. And I pretended to be gay. I looked at her and said, looking at your pretty blue eyes, it's giving me the naughty tingles. And she started laughing. And so initially I'll start out funny, but really quickly I want to create states of curiosity, intrigue, and fascination. With virtually every young woman I've ever been with, they almost all said the same thing. You know, I asked, well, what made you get into me so quickly? They said, I'm a sucker for fascination, and I just found you fascinating. Now, notice they didn't say, oh, I felt an incredible connection to you, or even that I felt a strong sexual attraction. Initially, it was fascination, and that's a really good doorway to get into with a younger woman. Remember, let's take the notion that 15% or 20% of the people you meet are going to be deeply suggestible anyway. With a younger woman, that's not enough. The fact that she's hyper-responsive by nature may not be enough because of the great age difference. And you don't want to rely on that alone. It's good that you had that, but you don't want to rely on it. What you need to do is establish a motivation on her part to want to respond. How do you establish the motivation, the responsiveness, so that she actually is in a place where she's able and wanting to respond to the trance, the hypnotic elements, and the seduction? How do we create responsiveness to seduction, responsiveness to trance, and the trance-like elements of seduction? Now, this is a discussion that I could do, again, a 6-week course on, 90 minutes a week. But let's limit it to a few basic elements here. So what creates response potential and desire for trance and seduction in a younger woman? As I said, fascination. Fascination, now it could be fascination and interest in what you observe about her. What can you teach her about herself that is linked to some highly valuable thing in her life? Like, for example, if you can teach her about how she visualizes, or teach her about how she experiences feelings in her body, for a lot of young women, this is a very interesting topic. It's interesting in and of itself, but also learning it implies a lot of benefits for her. She can also be fascinated with the power and the self-control with which you communicate. She also, number 3, can be very responsive to the format of games and demos. I'll give you an explanation of that in a moment. Finally, there are certain themes. All women like these themes, but with younger women, particularly the idea of escape. Being able to escape somewhere where she could have an adventure where the people around who would normally be around to judge her wouldn't be there. So anything having to do with escape, adventure, surrender, for younger women, these are really sexy themes. They are for all women, but I would avoid incredible connection or things like that with very young women, if there's a big age difference. So let me unpack these for you one by one. Fascination by what you observe about her, what you can teach her about herself, her likes, her potentials, her passions. So just to unpack this and be more specific, here's how this would work. I've met young women, I've joked around with them, all of a sudden I'll go like this. I'll go, I just noticed something about you. Nah, never mind. They'll say, what is it you noticed? I'll say, well, I just realized something about you. You make imagery in your mind very, very vividly. You're a fantastic visualizer, a daydreamer, fantasizer. Once she bites down on that and shows, I'll see, you almost see like a leaning forward, like that. Once you see that, then it's time to introduce your demo. The demo could be the cube. Let me show you this really cool game I learned called the cube. Or the blammo, this is one of my classic patterns. Or even the ideal vacation. Like, if you could go somewhere in your ideal vacation, where would you like to go, and what do you think you'd enjoy the most? Take her on her ideal vacation. Now, during any of these and all of these, I'm testing a few things. I'm testing to see how well she focuses in. And then as she focuses in and becomes progressively invested, I'm going to test to see how she responds to me becoming a little bit more blatantly hypnotic in my pacing and my tempo. So I don't necessarily start out that particularly hypnotic, but as she becomes more fascinated with the subject matter and responsive to the demo, then I become more hypnotic and see how she responds to it. She may also be fascinated with the power and self-control with which you communicate. Again, this is a matter of being grounded into your body. I'm going to do a whole module to accompany this one, so you'll see it shortly. This is a matter of having good control over your tempo, tonality, inflection, how resonant your voice is, how you control your breathing. Are you comfortable in your own body? Designing that relaxed, grounded, powerful state. So you can come across with, enough of a sexual vibe, but you don't come across as horny or overamped. This is important for all women, but especially younger women. And finally, the format of games, quizzes, and demos. By format, I mean there are different ways to present speed seduction material. You can ask questions. You can do memorized patterns like Discovery Channel, jokes and stories and poems. Demos. Demos are things like the Blamo pattern, the cube, even handwriting analysis. Games and quizzes, snack quiz, that sort of thing. For some reason that I'm not sure about, when there's a substantial age difference and when the woman just happens to be very young, they tend to respond better. In my experience, you can go out and test this and see for yourself, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Now, I created this stuff. They respond best to demos, games, and quizzes. Finally, and I didn't write this down, but if you occasionally put in just a little bit, like 1/10 of the time, a little bit of authentic self-disclosure, talk a little bit about something that matters to you or something that happened that had an impact with you, just like 1/10 of that, adding in a little bit, a little flash of vulnerability is really attractive. So let's start a discussion on this. This is something where we could go for months on this very topic, and let's see what you think, Ace of Cups.
Hey guys, it's Ross Jeffries, and in this update module and answering students, I'm going to give an answer to Tom W. Tom W. has brought up a very interesting topic, and that is the topic of how older guys can get with younger women. I know this is something that many of you watching have wondered about. It's something that I happen to specialize in. So let's get right to it. I'm going to show you Tom's email that he sent. Here it is. Let me summarize it because I don't like reading things from the screen. That's not what this really is about. This is not really about me reading word for word what you see in the slides. This is about me giving you the essence of what I know, and the slides are sort of there to help you along. So you can follow along if you want to, but essentially his situation is he's 37 years old. He's in graduate school, and he's coming across, well, not literally, but figuratively. He'd like to come across them literally. He's coming across all the 18 to 22-year-olds, and his question is, how can he pick them up? Now, I think that's the wrong way to phrase it, and we'll get there as I give him his answer in this module. But he has a second question here, which you're not allowed to do. It's one question at a time when you submit your questions. His second question is about getting with Christian women. We'll do that in a subsequent module if Tom's a good boy and responds well to this one. So the first principle I want to lay out for Tom and for all of you who are interested in getting with younger women. And let me just stop and define a term here. By younger women, I mean any woman who's at least 10 years younger than you are. Anything less than 10 years, I consider that they're still in your age range, and these principles aren't necessary. And the other thing is, all of these principles are useful for any age range, but they're crucial for younger women. So the first principle is pick the right subject. Of the world of much younger women, there's a certain band within that world, a certain bandwidth, if you will, that's going to be much easier, much more responsive. Now, can you seduce almost every younger woman? Sure, of course you can, but sometimes it's like pulling teeth. And remember, with speed seduction, we don't want to make it emotional dentistry. It's not our job to pull the emotional teeth of women. We want to deal with people who are happy, who are sexual, who are looking for an adventure. So it's really important, Tom, that you stop and consider what are the personality traits, the personality characteristics of the young women who will be most fun, most easy, most productive for you to invest your time in seducing. So really the thing to do for Tom and for all of you is to get out a piece of paper and a pen and begin to write down the characteristics. Now, it doesn't count if you write huge boobs, tight ass, flat belly, smoking hot, punani. We know that you want that, but we're talking about personality traits and characteristics. So let's look at the list I've made in this next slide. Now, this is just my list, but I've found in my experience with younger women, this really helps to make it a much easier a much easier task. I don't like calling it a task, but it's a much easier task. So I don't want to, again, read from the slides. That's a boring as batshit presentation, and that's not what I do. But I'm sure you can read this slide and look at some of them. Of these, I would say a really important one is highly sexual. Again, I want someone who's already sexual. And another aspect is that she enjoys sex, but she perceives there's more for her to learn about her body. She perceives that there's more in terms of how her body can respond to pleasure, that she needs a teacher and guide, someone to lead her into that. So one of her perceptions of older guys is they have a lot more experience, they know where to put what and what to touch and where to rub, and that they're likely to lead her to the kind of experience that a guy her own age may not be able to do. And, you know, if they're 18 to 20, remember when you were that age, you would pop off just looking at a girl. So chances are that could be a reality as well as something that she's searching for. Now, one of the things you see listed there that may seem counterintuitive is, you notice I said it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the second one to the last one in that list, which is physically active, physically very active, an athlete. And no, that's not the one. Excuse me. I make mistakes when I do this. Forgive me. The actual one that I want you to look at is the third from the last, which is preferably already has a boyfriend. Preferably already has a boyfriend. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, but in fact it's not, because with much younger women, you have to understand you're probably never going to be her boyfriend. You're going to be her sexual adventure. You're going to be the guy who helps her explore her erogenous zones, the erotic side of her personality. So the thing is this, is if she doesn't already have a boyfriend, then when she meets you, she's going to temporarily measure you against your checklist, and she's going to go, nope, too old, and check you right off. Paradoxically and counterintuitively, if she already has a boyfriend, her checklist has already in some way fulfilled. She doesn't need to worry about the boyfriend things like, oh, my friends would like him, he's got to be 6'3", he's got to be going to graduate school, come from a good family. That stuff doesn't matter, because she's already found that. And now you are just going to be her sex toy. You know, you're going to be the person who shows her what the equipment can really do. It's sort of like she's got a Ferrari, but the boyfriend's driving her like she's a Honda. She wants to go off-road, you know, four-wheeling, so to speak. So it actually works better if she has a boyfriend. I don't know if my cat Tabitha's in the shot, but I think she's coming to join me in this. What do you think, Tabitha? See? There she is. The final one you see on this list is also interesting and pretty important. That is, she offers compliance as part of her curiosity. One of the things I'm going to talk about here with younger women is you want to offer them things that are interesting. You want to structure opportunities for them to learn about themselves and offer challenges. And part of that is that because she's curious, she's going to go along. She goes along not necessarily because she likes to obey, but because she's curious, and she knows that that compliance is the price she must pay to have her curiosity satisfied. Okay, here's the next principle. Now you'll see again, really, when I do these presentations, it's not about the slide. There's actually more than one principle that's coming into this. But the big thing that I want Tom to get, and all of you horny guys who want younger women, is a really important principle is what matters is what you don't do. It's very important that you don't do certain things. First of all, don't expect to date her. You're not going to be her boyfriend. Sometimes you are, but for the most part, it's just going to be about the sex. I had an affair back when I was 45, that's 5 years ago, with a 23-year-old waitress. And she already had a boyfriend. In fact, she was living with a guy. And so she would come over to my house. I would pick her up at CPK after work. We'd go to my house. We'd do the nasty thing. And then she'd say, you know, can you take me back home? Can you drop me off? My boyfriend's going to take me to the movies in half an hour. Or I'm going grocery shopping with my boyfriend. Now, I would always drop her down at the very end of the block, far away from the apartment building where she lived. But the point of the matter is, we never went out. We never went to the movies. We never did any boyfriend-girlfriend thing. It was only and always about the sex. Now, you may think, wow, that's a terrible thing. You mean I'm just going to have hot, steaming, amazing, commitment-free sex with hard-bodied, young, gorgeous, perfect women? Yes. And you won't be spending any money, and you won't be doing things like going out on dates. Sorry about that. But that's usually how it works. There are some exceptions. Some girls are defiant. They're counterculture. They're polarity thinkers. They actually want to rub you in their girlfriends' faces. They like the fact that you're old enough to be their father, and they want to rub that in their girlfriends' faces. So as part of this, one of the things you also don't want to do is any kind of dating talk. Now again, remember, speed seduction is for women you're already dating, so anytime you do speed seduction, you want to try to avoid the dating talk, but it's really especially important. So you don't want to pick up, you don't want to ask out, you don't want to do any of those things. Never make it seem like you're asking her out. Don't ever try to be her boyfriend, don't ask for her phone number. I will give you some languaging to use to actually, seal the deal, but you don't want to do any of those things. It's really important. So, key principle, what matters is what you don't do. Third principle, with younger women, vibe is crucial. Vibe is really crucial. With any kind of woman of any age, vibe is important, but with younger women, it is crucial. You must get the vibes down. Now, as you know, I teach the 4 attraction vibes. Just to go over those really quickly, and this is in my Gold Walk-Up DVD, and also in my 3.0 course. But the 4 vibes are these. First of all, being dominant. The basic idea behind being dominant is to think, and you don't say it, but you express it in your attitude, in your responses, and in your behavior. The basic attitude is, I'm not your girlfriend with a penis. I'm a guy. At some point I could fuck you, and I'm also going to make sure you're safe. So you want to be dominant, you want to be a strong leader. This is crucial. You've got to have that dominant vibe. Now notice I'm not saying domineering. The difference between dominant and domineering is the domineering person has no concern with keeping the other person safe, has no concern with the other person's outcome. Now to very young women, a domineering guy can seem attractive because he's giving the imitation of being dominant, the appearance of being confident. In reality, it's just imitation, because he's lacking that key element of also being responsible and caring for the person who he's leading and dominating. So this is a very important vibe. Second vibe is being playful and fun, which is important, but you may find that that comes out naturally as the two of you connect. Third vibe is demonstrating that you deeply understand her world. That is really important. It's part and parcel of establishing, because you know where she's at, you therefore are trusted to take her where she might want to go, where you uniquely can show her in ways that the younger guy can't. So that's really crucial. Fourth vibe is being authentic, which is simply sharing your truth, even and especially if that truth might offend her. Because paradoxically, if you're willing to offend a woman, they trust you. Because women think, wait a minute, he's not just trying to scam me or get into my pants, he's actually offending me, he's risking offending me. He wouldn't do that if all he cared about was my punani, so he must be an okay guy, I trust him. We would never as guys think that way. If someone's offending us, we want to get right in their face, you see, but this is not how women think. Early on, of course, you want to see how she reacts to touch. Now, I'm not getting into the pickup artist keynote crap. I'm talking about, very early on, you can try one of my erotic touches. This is in my Irresistible Arousal DVD, and forgive me if I seem like I'm plugging other products, but it really is much better covered there more extensively, and there's only so much time I have in each of these. But one of the irresistible touch points is the thumb. If you just gently but firmly rub the thumb. I did this to a woman. First time I tried it, she said, is that supposed to be going between my legs? Because that's going right between my legs. The other is the nape of the neck. If you just take your hand like that and rub like that as you get up to go to the bathroom, and watch for her response. Another really important thing, and this is crucial, with a younger woman, my experience is if you don't close her the first time you are alone, you are not going to close her, because she's going to go home and think, wow, he felt up my pussy, that felt really great, I sucked him, blah, blah, but wait a minute, do I really want to be with an older guy, and what am I doing? Or even worse, she'll talk to one of her girlfriends, and then the social aspect of her mind is going to rear up from the pit, take over, and all that hard-on work you did right down the tubes, rather than pickling her tubes. Your work goes down the tubes. You don't want to do that. So you got to close her the first time you get her alone. Okay, crucial. Fourth principle. I think I said this before, but it's worth saying again as a separate principle. It is about the sex. A huge motive for younger women is that men their age are just not pleasing them. They don't know what to touch. They don't last very long. They don't know where to put it. They don't know where to pull. They don't know where to push. So they're looking for this older guy who's got a lot more experience. Now don't worry about that if you're basically sexually a novice, because you can learn to do a lot with some good fingering techniques and have some good toys available. There are lots of, you can get on the internet and just Google G-spot, Google fingering the G-spot. I don't want to go into it here. I'm not into making sexual education videos. And also get some really good toys. How to pick her up. Now, Tom asked how to pick her up. I don't like that languaging. One of the things I do as a teacher is to point out how the way you language things can actually be restricting the truth that you can see. So I don't like picking her up because that implies you're offering her some kind of compliment or saying, hey baby, I saw you over here. You can't do that with someone who's substantially younger. And again, I'm defining that as 10 years or more, because it's just going to scare her. As soon as you do that, even not so much scare her, but her checklist is going to come up. That checklist that says he's got to be so old, he's got to be this tall. So you got to avoid that. What I would do is use humor and observation. Use humor and observation. Notice something she's doing. And of course, if you're on a college campus and women are studying, just observe her. And often you'll see her go, she's reading the book going, she's talking to herself in her head. So you walk up or you lean over and say, excuse me, but would you stop talking to yourself in your head so loudly? I'm trying to do some work here and it's very important and you're thinking very loudly. And that'll make her laugh and say, so what are you studying there? See what I mean? So use humor and observation. Do not compliment. Do not compliment. Do not compliment. Do not compliment. That kind of thing, the direct complimentary approach, reserve that for women closer to your own age range. And certainly don't do it with women who are 18 to 20 or 22. So what's some specific language you can use to get another meeting with her, assuming you can't pull her back to your place right then and there after the first meeting? Well, I don't recommend you say, I'd like to take you out sometime, or let's go out to dinner. Here's what you do. You say, you seem like someone who might be fun. You seem like someone who might be fun. Now, you're being very vague. What kind of fun? Sexually fun? Fun to play canasta with? Fun to go to the nudist colony? You're being vague. Remember, one of the key principles of speed seduction is when you're vague, the other person, the woman, has to fill in the blanks with her own mind. Because she's filling in the blanks with her own imagination, there's no possibility that it's not going to match. It's going to match because she's the one doing the filling in, based on whatever is in her own imagination. So, you seem like someone who might be fun. That's the first part. The second part of the phrase is, and I can picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. And I can picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. And I can picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. Where's the embedded command? Picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. This is also an example of something I call the I-U shift. I can picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. I'm talking about I, but I'm giving the command to her. Or you could say, hey, you know what? Why don't we hang out and then propose, why don't we hang out tomorrow at noon? I can meet you here and we'll see, and I'll see if you're really the kind of person I'd like to hang out with. And something like that. I'm not getting the exact words. The exact words aren't so important. What's important is that you use an embedded command. You structure it as, you're not quite sure about her. You're vague. Notice you're vague in the second part when you say, and I can picture us hanging out, really enjoying ourselves. Now, really enjoying ourselves how? Hanging out doing what? Because it's vague, she'll fill in the blanks with her imagination. With younger women, it's really important to be vague. Here's another really, really good one. This is so crucial. No one tells you this, and you would never stop to think about this, but with young women, if you follow what I'm about to tell you, you'll up your success by 500%. If you don't follow what I'm about to tell you, everything else I tell you will fall to the ground. Don't fantasize. Do not fantasize about any woman prior to being with her. But with young women, you must not do it, because you'll drip so much lust, or you'll overextend your intent so strongly that you'll just get smushed. So you must make a rule. I do not touch my tool until I'm dipping it inside her vaginal pool. Okay? I like rhyming. I do not touch my tool until I'm dipping it into her vaginal pool. You will not masturbate or fantasize about her at all. You're going to say, but Ross, this will take away all the motivation. No, there should be sufficient motivation there. You've got to learn to manage your motivation. This is crucial. If you can't manage your motivation, you're not going to be able to motivate her. You got to go first. Not just with your emotions that you show when you're with her, but you got to go first in terms of how you manage your emotions when she's not even around and before you've gotten with her sexually. That's key, emotional management. Not just when you're present with her, but when you haven't even really gotten with her yet. Really key. Okay, so that's the presentation for Tom. Tom, please give me your comments. And again, I love doing this part of the coaching program. And let's get to the next module. Hi guys, it's Ross Jeffries, and welcome to the Answers to Student module for Ludwig. This is December 2008. Now I have to admit this is kind of an unusual question. I've never gotten this one before. Usually it's sort of the opposite of this question, but let's get right to it. And I think we can help Ludwig out. So here's his question, and again, remember, it's not my job to read these slides, so I'll just sum it up for you. But he really wants to get with women who are older than he is. He's 22 years old. He wants to date women between 29 and 34, so he says. And he's saying that he gets eliminated because of his looks. He's 22, but he looks like he just turned 18. Now, look at me. I should only have this problem. I wish I knew now what I knew back when I was Ludwig's age. So let's get right to it. I think I have some answers for him. First of all, before I even discuss what I have in this slide, let me just say the idea of dating women is a mistake. Stop thinking in terms of dating. There are many women in that age group who you would like to get with who would probably love to screw you, have sex with you, wild, abandoned sexual, physical relationships, who may never want to date you. They may never want to go out in public and go to dinner, go to the movies, go on a hike or a picnic. But, you know, it's the same when you're much older and you want to get with women who are much younger. I've had nothing but physical relationships with a lot of young women, and they didn't want to be seen with me among their friends, but so what? You know, all that free sex. So I'll get rid of the term dating. I think I understand what you mean. So let me ask a few questions. These are sort of standard questions I like to ask. But I'd like to ask, first of all, what's stopping you now? How many times have you actually gotten the responses that you don't like? How many trials have you gone through? With any kind of endeavor, when you're not quite certain about the tools or the outcome yet, you have to do multiple trials. Data percolates upward through all those different experiences that you have. So obviously I can't talk to you in this format. We can talk when we do the office hours or we do the twice-a-month coaching calls as a group. But I would ask you, how many times have you tried? How many efforts have you made? And also, have there ever been times when you did get the responses you wanted? Have you ever been with older women and the age thing never came up? Because when people are looking for resourcefulness, often they're deleting what they've already done correctly or properly. And sometimes my job as a master coach is to say, well, where are you not having the problem? Where are you already doing it right? Look for the resource if you already have it. And again, since this is not a particular two-way form of communication, maybe when you see this posted, you can post something in the discussion area and give feedback to me. Or as I said, we can wait till we do the twice-a-month coaching calls or the office hours. So I always want to look for the simple solutions first. Is there anything you can do to make yourself look older? Can you grow some facial hair, do something with the way you're dressed to present yourself as slightly older? Now that's a cosmetic solution, and I tend not to aim at cosmetic solutions because they're, you know, pretty trite and pretty obvious, but you might want to try that. But I think the best thing to do when a woman brings up how old are you or you look kind of young is to blow it off with humor, to dissipate it with humor, and then to change the subject. So blow it off with humor and then do a non sequitur. In the 3.0 course, I talk about the power of using logical transitions, but also the power of using non sequiturs and how to fractionate back and forth between the two. So I taught a student who was having the same problem to say the following thing. When they ask how old you are, they say, you look pretty young. You say, actually, I'm only 7, but that's in dog years. And then change the subject. And I like to change the subject by saying, so, when you were a little girl, did you have a favorite candy that was the king of your candy castle? Now that starts to lead into the blowjob pattern. So blow it off with humor and then immediately fractionate by doing a non sequitur into something funny, and that funny thing can lead into the blowjob pattern. Some other bits of advice. Since when you're much younger or much older than the person who you'd like to get with, oftentimes we have that second layer of the mind, the social approval layer that comes up with all that checklist. Remember, I've said many times, the model I have is that women have 4 different levels to their consciousness. And that second one is the social approval level, where she keeps her checklist. What would my friends think? What should I do at my age, etc. So you want to look for the lone wolves who are hanging out by themselves, wherever that may be, coffee shops, grocery stores, whatever, because then the judgment of her social circle is not going to come right up right then and there and get in your way right out of the chute. And again, as I said earlier in this presentation, don't date them. Go for the fast fuck. Fuck them as soon as you can and satisfy them sexually. Use speed seduction when you're in bed with them. Anchor their sexual pleasure with a touch and a little look. a bite on the ear, a squeeze on the back of the neck, and a sound like Keep them reaching for more. Intermittently reward them and then ignore them occasionally to keep them coming. I don't normally recommend this, but when there's such a barrier, at least ostensibly so, in the beginning so, you gotta really keep them off guard. Reward them and then occasionally don't return the calls. I have what I call the 5-20 rule. I've never taught this really, but I guess I will reveal it to you now. The 5-20 rule says 20% of the time, be 5% more difficult, 5% gruffer, 5% more demanding, 5% less available than you normally would. So 1/5 of the time, be about 5% less friendly, 5% more, I don't know, reserved. And that kind of percentage can make a big difference. So I recommend with women who are much older than you, who you might be eliminated from right away, do a 5-20. And also, I must say, look for married women. Married women are not looking to get divorced, who are pretty happy, will still be open to sexual adventures with much younger guys. And finally, this is really key. Don't make too much of an issue of it. Even if it is a little issue for them, just a little bit, they'll make more of it if you make more of it. If you believe it is a problem, they will too. And here comes a gold key rule. This gold key rule is good for anything, not just a situation of you being a younger guy wanting to get with older women. Here it is. Gold key understanding. You're always setting the lead even when you aren't. What does that mean when I say even when you aren't? Well, even when you're not intending, even when you're not thinking, okay, I'm going to lead this girl, I'm going to capture and lead her imagination and emotions. Even when it's not a deliberate, intentional, conscious, volitional plan, you're still always leading. By nature of the fact that they're women and you're a man, even if you're not taking the lead dramatically and intelligently or effectively, whether you know it or not, your state is always going to lead their state, particularly if you have rapport. So if it isn't a big deal to you, it won't be that big a deal to them. If it is a big deal to you, it will be a big deal to them. It's going to get into their vibe. You'll subcommunicate it. So remember, women of all ages, no matter what their age difference is between you and them, swatting in a bit of lint there, they deeply crave great sex, they crave emotional variety, and they crave a strong lead and a challenge. And you really have to lean on the strong lead and the challenge here. Everything can be bypassed when you have this. I don't care if she's already involved with someone, if you're butt ugly, if you're too old, if you're too young, any of that will go by the wayside if you can, again, great sex, emotional variety, a strong lead, and challenge. So that's it for this one. I know it's a short one. Please play with this. Give me your feedback in the member area and in the coaching calls.